I welcome you all, basketball degenerates, to another episode of the Pass First, Shoot Later podcast brought to you by the OC Basketball League. I'm your host, Zico Pepic, here with my partners in crime, Michael Van Wyck and Omar Almadine.
Yay, yay.
Supposed to change that name. What's up, guys?
Said his name right. Didn't even try and rhyme this time.
Nah, you can keep rhyming. Everybody trying to be a rapper nowadays.
No, I'm not trying to do that. I'm too white to do that. You know, I will only embarrass myself.
What you mean? They need the white community needs a new Eminem. Come on, man.
It's Dino, bro. It's my brother before it's gonna be me.
He doesn't know what he wants to do.
I know. How you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Good. I like these earlier in the evening podcast.
Earlier in the evening where we start talking for 30 minutes about other things completely from the podcast before we even start the podcast and waste all that time.
It's still better than when we did that at 11.
You know what? But the thing is, we need to probably just hit record from the beginning, and then we can always edit stuff out because it's raw, authentic, right off the bat. And that's the whole thing that's going to draw people is authenticity. But speaking of that, Zico, I think it's time. Our logo needs to go on some shirts. I think we need to make a pass first, shoot later t-shirt. Get some merch out.
All for it, Omar, but you're the one that designs stuff like that, so you got to put it all together, bro. Get to work.
Keep on the lookout for the pass first, shoot later merch coming real soon.
I'd love to see that. That'd be pretty cool, actually. I don't think anyone would wear it, but us three
Why
only.
not?
Mike's kids.
Yeah. Get some youth sizes. I'll throw it on my kids.
See, if you guys can't support your own brand, I don't know why people are going to follow us.
I just said we would support it, but
Mike said he's going to throw it on his kids. Like, come on.
No, I'm aware.
I don't have any kids yet, bro. You want me to throw on my little dog? Like, I'll carry her around and start doing that.
Hey, you know what? That might be cool.
Omar is starting to produce dog clothes. That's a business you definitely want to get into.
Hey, man, always finding a way to make a buck.
All right. Well, speaking of making a buck, we're here trying to make a YouTube channel. I don't know how much money we'll get off of it, but you know we're working on it. It's a work in progress, right?
So support us, subscribe. We need more followers.
No. Like and subscribe is me. Like and subscribe is me. You can't do
Mike,
that.
you don't got to say it one time. You got to say it all the time. Remind people. It doesn't matter. See,
Omar's still nervous about his outro for the show, and
oh no, I don't give a shit about that outro. By the way, Mike, for somebody that hates Kobe Bryant and his ego, God, your ego's so big sometimes.
Oh man.
We over here taking turns like, oh, that was my line. He stole my line. Come on, Mike.
Well, speaking of your line, you said that you're going to be calling someone at the end of the show. Do you have 5 people lined up and that you might hit up and call to see who we can put on the show as a random guest?
I got 5 people. We'll see who picks up.
So whoever does not pick up, okay, every person that does not pick up, Omar owes us 15 push-ups.
Okay.
No one's gonna pick up.
So what, Mike?
No one's gonna pick up on purpose. They'll pick up the second time.
Okay. Now y'all gonna make me call the person I know that's gonna pick up for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, honey, be ready for my phone call in about an hour.
Yeah, you get to the end. I'm not doing 60 push-ups. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Look, if that's the challenge, let's see who picks up by the end of this session.
Okay, well, how about we get into basketball talk now? I'm sure people will be riveted to watch Omar do push-ups, but I think they'd rather hear us talk about basketball.
You know what? If somebody doesn't pick up from the first call, then I will videotape myself doing push-ups, and you can put it on the Instagram.
There we go. I mean, you put it on, just tag me.
Let's get to basketball. I agree. Is there a way for you to edit and splice in who we picked to win the in-season tournament?
Well, we did. I picked had like a random pick, and then who we expected to win. I think we all picked the Lakers to win, and then picked a random team. Like I think Mike picked Miami as a dark horse. I picked Sacramento as a dark horse. Yeah, was that right, Omar? Oh, I'm sorry. Omar picked Miami as a dark horse. Yeah, I picked Sacramento as a dark horse. Mike, I don't know if you picked anyone else. I can't remember.
Mike was stuck on the Laker hater. Was stuck on the Lakers winning. You know how it is.
He's
Who's
not.
not the hater?
He's a LeBron fan.
Huge LeBron fan. Every episode I've mentioned how great LeBron is.
I know. I'm trying to instigate something, get a reaction, Zico. Just let Mike react. Don't come to his
He's
defense.
going to react.
Inaugural,
He's going to react
NBA
because
Cup winner, inaugural NBA Cup MVP. Guy
yeah,
does.
we're definitely gonna have a conspiracy theory episode where we talk about how that part was pretty much rigged. I'm a
Yeah.
Lakers fan, and I admit that, Mike. I think the whole tournament was. I mean, not the whole tournament. I think it was planned that the Lakers would get it. LeBron would get the MVP.
We're not. That's crazy.
I'm a
It's
Lakers
not,
fan.
it's,
saying
it's,
that.
it's not far-fetched, and I'm a Lakers fan, and I talked to so many other people who thought the same exact thing. This was meant for LeBron to win and cement his name as the GOAT.
This was meant so people would watch the NBA in November and December instead of just watching football and tuning out for another week.
I agree with that, Mike. But if you remember, when they originally talked about having an in-season tournament, there was a player, a big name player, who was completely against the in-season tournament. Do you remember who that player was? He thought Adam Silver was an idiot for considering having an in-season tournament.
Go ahead.
It was LeBron James.
Right.
So now, LeBron James, as the tournament's going on, and he realizes he's going to win an MVP, something Michael Jordan never could have had because there was no in-season tournament during his era. LeBron James is gung-ho, ready to get it. Add to his accolades.
Oh, no. I mean, he was all about the play-in tournament too when he needed it to get in or not into the playoffs.
Okay, well, you said that right. When he needed it to get in. See,
yeah, no, that's everybody though.
The NBA is built right now to cater to LeBron and his legacy. I don't care how you slice it and dice it. Okay.
Stop it.
LeBron is the NBA. I don't care if you have Jokic and Giannis and everything. LeBron, as long as he's still wearing a jersey, running up and down the court, the NBA is LeBron's league.
Yeah, and I think he proves it day in and day out.
And yes, the play-in was for him to have a chance to get in. This in-season tournament is to cement his legacy. All I'm going to say, we're not going to get hung up on it because we have something more interesting to talk about. But I would like to see a modification to the in-season tournament and maybe create it for the bottom half of the league, because some of those teams are struggling and it motivates the players with the payout at the end to play better.
But it's pool play, and they got teams that aren't gonna. The Pacers are good. I don't think any one of us is gonna sit here and say the Pacers are playing in the NBA Finals.
Not currently constructed.
Neither are the Pelicans.
Yeah.
Neither are the Knicks.
Not currently constructed, but if a trade happens, they might possibly be in there.
Yeah, I mean the teams that are making deep runs. Milwaukee got beat. Boston got beat. Denver didn't even make the bracket.
And that's because those teams are all teams that we all, in any NBA fan, will tell you right now are potential final contenders, right? If you look at other the teams that played better in the tournament, those are the teams with the players that are on two-way contracts, low salaries, that payout at the end was a motivational factor. The payout at the end motivated a lot of players on Indiana.
Joker averaged like 30, 20, and 10 in the
so the NBA is about one player. Big segue, Zico, to go to what we're talking about tonight, because we're talking about individual accolades.
I will throw this out there. Jokic, he was missing his running mate. Jamal Murray being out is the same thing will happen in this season's playoffs. If Murray is not healthy, that team ain't winning.
I think that goes for most teams in the NBA. If you're number two guys out, you're not winning.
All right, exactly. So that also ties into what we're going to be talking about tonight, because no one wins by themselves, regardless of what anyone might think. You need a team to win. You might account more for that team winning, but you need a team to win, plain and simple. So tonight we are actually putting together our two-part series of the top 10 players all time. So the way we're going to do this is we are going to list the criteria that we thought about is needed to be part of a top 10 list. And we're also going to list players that players that some people might have on their list that
Incorrectly.
might incorrectly. And then also players that maybe have asterisks or arguments next to their name of maybe they could be on the list. Example being Steph Curry. He could be on the top 10 list at some point. His career is not over. He's still going. But also players who are right there, they're fringe. So we created a list of about 30 to 35 players, all-time great players. Some of them are current players as well. Some of them are players that really never have a chance of getting there. But again, they've been talked about in other people's lists as being all-time greats. Some people actually have them in top 10 lists. We don't feel like they are. So those players were going to be categorized into the asterisk category. We have an arguments list. A few players who we feel like could break the top 12, either now or down the line, or just again, they might be on someone's list and they have a legitimate argument for it. And then we have a top 12 list. So we're going to kind of run through this, kind of go through this list in this episode so that we can kind of have a basis for our next episode, which will actually be our top 10, each individual top 10, Mike, Omar, and my top 10 all time. We're going to each do a list. We're going to go over it, reasons why, and we're going to share it with our fans and see who everybody thinks is right.
Realistically, and just so we can clear it up, I think our top 10s are going to be pretty close to the same. I think that number order might be what hits different.
For the most part, I agree with you, Mike. I think most of it will be, but at the same time, I feel like us going over this, especially when we consider the criteria that we're going to be basing this off of, I think that it could actually sway maybe one or two spots in
maybe people can
spot.
Maybe people can comment and tell us why I'm right and you guys are wrong.
Would love that. Actually, Mike, speaking of you being right, I just want you to know, so I get a lot of comments already, right? People have been actually messaging me about the show. They think it's hilarious. Last episode, a lot of people liked it, especially the famous Giddy conversation.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're probably giddy about the episode, right?
They're giddy about it. Yes, they are. But every single person that's messaged me has said Mike is effing delusional.
About which part?
About Kobe Bryant take. Your Kobe Bryant take. That's literally what they all.
You live in the area. They're all gonna. It's. Listen,
I know, but
I expect everybody out there who was born after 1990 to think Kobe is the greatest player to ever play.
I don't think he's the greatest player to ever play. But
were you born after 1990, Zico?
No, I'm just saying in general. I don't. He's my favorite player ever, and I don't think he's the greatest player ever. But just as a reference, the players that we have on this list are players that crack every top 30, top 50 list that you look at. These are all players that are mentioned in there. So we actually did our research. We aren't just giving you our opinions. We actually did our research. We looked at numbers. We looked at championships, awards, all of it. We looked at all this. Me and Mike especially. I don't know about Omar. I don't know if Omar sat and did that. I think Omar just does the eye test. But me and Mike are a little bit more of stat geeks, and we're going to look at that.
That is so disrespectful.
Right? No, it's not. Omar, actually, I'm sorry. You actually have a really good eye for these things. Like, you base your intuition when looking at a player. You've done this. You're a basketball coach. You're a basketball trainer. You've been doing this. You will look at a kid. You know what he needs to work on. You know what he's good at. You're good at that. I'm right in the middle.
Just because it's low-hanging fruit, the only guy with the good eyes is the one wearing glasses. Come on.
You know what, Mike? It's only for computer, but you know what? Since I'm not reading shit, I might as well do this. But no, I'm sticking to my shit. You know what? Next episode, I'm gonna wear some stunner shades. You know, I'm gonna wear some sunglasses at night.
You should. It'll go well with the black background of the pass first shoot later.
Yeah, you can't see me at all. Just like
Ray Charles. All right. Let's do this. Run through this first.
Okay.
12.
Before I jump into it, like, again, most of those lists, though, in fact, I think it's a majority of those lists. If you go through it, in those top 10, Kobe Bryant's listed in almost every single one. I found one person that put Kobe Bryant as 11. So
And I haven't even.
Mike,
outside of Mike.
You're the second one outside of you. There's only 2 people that have listed. One writer agreed with you and it did the same thing and put him top 11.
It's lonely at the top. It's lonely at the top.
Well, just got to throw that out there. Okay. So in terms of criteria, this is what we have based it off of. This is the top 10 all-time criteria we value and we think is important in terms of deciding this. 1, statistical dominance. 2, championship rings. 3, at least 1 MVP award. 4, a great peak. So there's players who have great careers, but they weren't the best at any point in their careers. And I think those are things that we have to value. I think there's a few guys on that top 10 list that had amazing peaks, top 12 list that had amazing peaks that must be valued. 5, longevity. There's players who had, 1 or 2 amazing seasons and then just fell off, and that kind of takes away from them being considered top 12 candidates. 6, affect both sides of the ball. So if you're a great offensive player, but you're a terrible defensive player, Mike, you and I have talked about this. James Harden is our prime example. He will never crack any of my lists personally. No disrespect to him, but I don't think anyone has given less effort on defense than anyone I've ever seen than James Harden, while playing as hard as he has at times on offense.
Yeah, James Harden.
Yeah. 7, competition and era. I think that this is really important. There are eras in basketball where defense isn't as valued. There are eras in basketball where offense is the most important aspect of it. There are eras in basketball where coaches didn't structure things the way they structure things now. So we looked at all the eras and we analyzed that against each of these players. Skill, overall skill. I think that that's important in determining top 10. I think there's a couple guys who might lack due to that. Mike's laughing at that.
Yeah, obviously skill's important, guys.
Yeah, obviously. Historical value. This is one of the, I think, hardest things to talk about. There's a lot of things that are iconic. Wilt's 100 points. How somebody might have changed basketball. Jordan and Steph changed the game of basketball. Shaq changed the game of basketball. That's a historical aspect that it's historical, it's cultural, it's statistical, whatever it might be. They changed the game of basketball historically due to effect that they had on or off the court. Dominance in their era. This I think is really important. I think there's a few guys on this list that literally just dominated their entire era. And I think that adds to the value that they hold in this list. Team impact. I think that's really important as well. There's a lot of guys who were on teams that were much more deep than some of the other guys on this list. So I think that that's also an important aspect to look at. Playoff performance. And this is a big one because it ties into the championship rings and the finals MVP. If you underperformed when the time was important, you couldn't win a title, you couldn't do whatever you need to do, or couldn't win that many titles, it will affect where we list you on this list. Individual accolades, those are obviously important, and supporting cast. So supporting cast kind of ties back into team impact. Who were your teammates? Did you go in with a stacked squad and that's why you got, Robert Horry? He can't be part of the list, even though he has 7 titles. He just kind of hopped onto team to team and knew where he needed to be to win. So, sorry, Rob, you ain't on this list. Although I would love to interview you for our podcast one week.
I don't think anyone's putting Horry in a top 15.
No, I know, but it's just we're gonna.
But he does have 7 rings. You can't deny that.
No, absolutely.
Okay. So we're going to start with the top 12 that we have. Again, these top 12s are the top 12 guys that are generally considered top 12 across all the big boards that we've looked at. We looked at all of them, and these are the most consistent top 12 guys that we have in every single all-time list that we've looked at. So
in no particular order.
Particular order. Yeah, this is just
do it random. Don't even start with Jordan.
Mike, why don't you go ahead? You give me the top 12. You can list them in no particular.
I don't have the list that we went with in front of me, but I'll give
I
you.
got it.
I'll give you. I'll give you
I got
five.
it.
I'll give you
Omar's
five.
got it. Omar's
Oh,
got
okay.
it.
Omar's got the okay.
So we got Oscar Robertson, Hakeem Olajuwon, Bill Russell, Will Chamberlain, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Shaquille O'Neal, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Tim Duncan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, and Michael Jordan.
Did you just do it backwards?
I sure shit did. You know what?
The second he started, I knew he was going to do that.
I was gonna mix them up, but then I was like, maybe I'll just throw myself off. So I just read them backwards. Because you said those, Jay, so I did it. I followed.
It works. We got the job done. That's all that matters.
Nobody knows the order we're thinking.
I mean, I love that Mike knew that the order was MJ1 and Kobe 2.
Yeah, so you should have just regurgitated the list from because you obviously knew it.
I would have had to scramble it.
Oh man.
There's a lot
Okay.
of so
But
those
we
are
know-
people, but those are people that I think, like Zico said, majority of people you're going to get an argument on order, but I think for the most part that's going to round out most people's top 10s or top 12s or whatever number you're going with. Those are the guys that you're going to consistently see in there, and I think we're going to touch on people that, in my opinion, are crazy and thinking outside that want to argue other people. That's kind of what we're going to touch on here. So that
Well,
so you guys
we do want to add that we're going to talk about other players that potentially are still playing that could crack that top 12.
absolutely.
But this is based on today.
Right.
Absolutely.
So what we're going to do today, we're not going to touch the top 10, top 12 list. We're going to kind of leave that top 12 alone. What we're going to be talking about today is actually players that could have an argument to enter that top 10. And like Omar said, it might be somebody who is still playing today, whose career isn't completed, and maybe down the line he'll be able to crack this top 10, top 12. And then other players that are mentioned in a lot. There's a lot of people, like, you ask for their top 10 and they'll have someone really random on it. I've had people tell me Dwayne Wade is a top 10 player. I've had people tell me James Harden is a top 10 player. I've had people tell me Allen Iverson is a top 10 player.
We're
We're
the
gonna,
same people texting you that I'm crazy.
no, ironically they're not. But there are
Mike,
people
nobody's going to join your little world of being on an island with that other guy that thinks Kobe's not in the top 10.
And by the way, that guy was like a Canadian writer, just so you know. So he's from Canada. So
Smart person sounds like. They're super nice too. So
So that person in Canada has SGA on the border of making the top 10 ever because he's Canadian.
it was probably Steve Nash. He wrote the article.
Steve Nash, I'm guaranteeing you. Actually, you know what? Since you mentioned an NBA player, there's actually one article in particular. See, for me, if I were an actual journalist, one of the things I don't like about journalists today is I feel like a lot of their writing is biased. They're putting their own opinions on it, which I get it. It's going to happen. This is a top 10 list and things like that. But if I were to make a top 10 list, I would actually do it doing research by polling. I would poll people. Yeah, I would. I would poll every NBA. I would poll at least 1,000 NBA players, as many coaches, trainers, general managers as I possibly can from the history of the NBA, not just current. I would do former, everything. I would ask former players, current players, trainers, coaches, everyone I could find who actually has a wealth of basketball knowledge. I wouldn't just use NBA players. I would even use worldwide players and coaches. I would ask all of them. I would poll them. And you know what? Ironically, one person actually did do that. I think they polled about 150 people.
It's a great
Mike hates where this is going. And they polled current and former NBA players. And ironically, there was a top 3 that came out.
What was the oldest?
What were the top 3 players that those people
that are always there? It's the same reason. That's why there's people who put Dwayne Wade in their top because who's
Dwayne Wade was not mentioned actually.
I know that your 3 are LeBron, Jordan, and Kobe. We're all aware.
And Kareem was the 4th one. So those were the top 4 players. Those were the top 4. But Kobe, actually LeBron, I think Jordan had like 70% of the votes. Kobe and LeBron were each around 11%, and Kareem had the next amount with like 7.
Yeah. What were the age of these people? These 150 people? What
current and former players? That's
okay. What I mean, some of these former players aren't,
Mike, this article is from like 5-6 years ago, man. So this is This is
Right.
this is an older.
Everybody in the Kobe
I mean,
era.
Zico, you're trying to reason with a guy that still thinks Kobe's not in the top 10 list of all time. So let's move past that
Okay,
and get to the really the nitty gritty of our podcast session today, our episode today.
I want to start off with saying how undervalued Dirk Nowitzki is. He doesn't get enough credit. He probably could arguably be in that top 12.
Okay.
Realistically, I don't think he's going top 10. Obviously, I don't think he's better than Kobe.
Okay, so
let's
there
list, Mike, let's list the potential arguments. We have 6 guys on this list who we feel could make
we
an
left
argument
one.
for the top 12.
We left one off that list earlier, so I'll add them. So it's actually 7. You said 7 to start. So we left one person off that list.
Okay, well, I'm gonna list the 6, and then Omar, you can add who you think was the 7th, and then we could argue about it. 1 is Steph, 2 is Kevin Garnett, 3 is Giannis, 4 is Jokic, 5 is Jerry West, and 6 is Dirk Nowitzki.
And the person we left off that list is Kevin Durant. He was in our list. He was in our list of our original list.
He was actually. I'm sorry, you're right. So 7, Kevin Durant.
Yeah, and I think that those active players have a really good shot of displacing some of these top 10. Like I said, I don't think Dirk's getting in that top 10. His career's over.
Jerry West, the same thing with me. I feel the same thing.
I mean, I wouldn't even put Jerry West in the conversation. Sure, he's the logo, but at this point, there's nothing he's going to do. There's so many other players that we're going to be talking about that have significantly done better. I mean, there's been conversations that you've heard where people were talking about it's time to change. Well, first of all, let's talk about one thing we talked about in previous episodes is most people don't know that Jerry West is the NBA logo. Let's start there.
I think most of these fans today don't know who Jerry West is, other than an occasional GM, and that's why.
And that's where it's going to get to, because if you start talking to younger generations, half those people on the top 12 that we know, they've never seen play or heard of at all, and then this is where you start getting people saying, "Oh well, James Harden's in my top 10." You know what I'm saying? Somebody might come to you out of nowhere and say, "Well, John Morant's in my top 10." You know what I'm saying? You're gonna get as the generations Mike, but you get. I know you're laughing, but I threw that out there because I went so extreme. Because just like we think putting Dwayne Wade in the top 10 is extreme, there's people that are worse than that.
You're absolutely right, and I think that's why that list that you just mentioned has a lot of people that are going to be in a lot of people's top 10s. You're going to
exactly. I mean, but you're talking about a guy like Jerry West. I can't see him cracking that top 10 no matter how you slice it and dice it.
I agree.
So, just kind of as a point of reference, you guys just talked about how a lot of people won't know who Jerry West is. I actually agree with that. I think a lot of the younger generation, they don't know who he is. They will talk about Wilt because Wilt scored 100 points. They'll talk about Bill Russell because he won so many titles. But if you actually look at Jerry West's numbers, they're actually amazing. He averaged
statistically, yes.
And actually, so like he actually, the reason why he falls into this category is because he actually has enough accolades based off the criteria that we had. You said that you wouldn't add him to this. I think we forget about this aspect of what this guy did in his era. Omar, he averaged 27 points, 6 rebounds. 27 points, 6
rebounds, and 7 assists. I got you.
14-time All-Star. He was an assist champ.
He was also a
10-time
All NBA first team.
Finals
right,
MVP,
statistically.
Finals MVP, 5-time All Defensive Team, All-Star MVP as well, scoring champion, and NBA champion. So
he also lost in the finals 8 times.
I have an emergency. Keep going, but I have an emergency. I'll be right back.
Okay, you're good. Yeah, Jerry West lost 8 times in the finals. I know a lot of people like to bring that up. I don't think that's really as severe as a ding as a lot of people like to state. I think getting to the finals is a big deal. Obviously, you mentioned getting it done in big games counts, but the guy was a finals MVP for a losing team, which is insane. But yeah, his numbers are eye-popping. But again, his career's done. He can't do any more to get up there. And if you're not putting them there now, you're not going to put them there, in 10 years.
So my asterisks for Jerry West, because I do have one as well. I know I just talked about his stats and how great he was. My asterisk for him and for the players of his era is that era only had 8 teams. If you actually look at that era and the competition that was there, I'm not surprised that some people went out and had some outrageous stats because of the competition, the lack thereof of competition. Like if you actually look at the size of some of the teams, there are multiple teams that like Wilt played against. I think I remember reading something that the starting center that Wilt played against in this game, he scored 100 points, was 6'7". There are multiple teams. If you look at the size, their tallest players 6'7", 6'8", 6'9". That's the biggest. There are a couple 7-footers in that era, but out of the 8 teams, I think there was like 6 total 7-footers.
Yeah, but I think and obviously it's a different.
I know.
Everything good?
I'm sorry.
I was just Omar. Everything good?
Yeah. Everything good.
Okay.
False alarm.
I think that the whole height thing, obviously, that used to be a big thing. Oh, Wilt dominated. Everyone was small. And now in the NBA, everyone's playing small ball anyways, and you don't.
Yeah, but you don't have. You do have some dominant 7-footers, right? Joel Embiid and Giannis at 6'11" is still considered, some of the taller players. And
neither one of them scoring 100 points.
Well, exactly. That's the whole point. But the game is different as well, right? And so that's why we talk about the era of the game. But yeah, Wilt scoring 100 points against guys 6'7" at that time there was a big disparity, right? Especially talent wise, right? Players now are more athletic. Players are more, the physicality varies. I'm not going to say which one's more physical or not, but there's a lot of factors that you take into account to talk about Wilt scoring 100 against guys, even though right now we see small ball a lot in today's NBA.
Yeah, but I think it's also different the way they play defense, though, Omar. And that's kind of like what I was talking about. Like Jerry West, like my asterisk, if I were to say of him not cracking this top 12, is just he had those numbers because he was playing against weaker competition. There were players at that time who could not use their left hand. So like,
well, that the whole dribbling like this, like
exactly. So like it's not a knock against him. I'm just gonna say like this is probably the reason I wouldn't put him in that top 12 category.
And the thing is, at the end of the day, even if he doesn't make the top 10, this man is on every single thing the NBA puts out. There's not much more recognition, outside of the Hall. He's already a Hall of Famer. He's already, being talked about one of the top in the top 10 conversation. But that recognition of being the logo himself, we can. You can't beat that right now.
And I know we had some asterisks that are active players, but can we shuffle out players that probably, if they won a championship or two, they would probably be in this as a no-brainer?
Are you talking about current players, Mike, that are on this?
No, past players that are never going to move up. But if they had won a championship or two in their time, they probably would be in this top 10. I think guys like
I would say Charles Barkley, if he won 2 championships, I would say he would be somebody cracking that top 10.
If Karl Malone ever took down Michael Jordan and the Bulls in that era, I think he would probably be in the top 10 conversation for a lot of people.
Agree.
But if that Utah Jazz team did take down Michael Jordan at some point, you're going to have to bring in the whole argument of where does John Stockton stand? One of the all-time leading assist leaders. You know what I'm saying? He, we talked about this probably off air and everything, is every NBA team that has won a championship had to have 2, top players, right?
With one exception.
And that is
Kawhi Leonard's Toronto Raptors. But they had a bunch of injuries on the other side. But I don't think he had a real number 2. No one's going to.
I think maybe
number 2.
The Detroit Pistons, when they beat the Lakers, it was a really deep. There wasn't really a 1 or 2. It was like, that was just that was one of the best defensive.
Hamilton, Phillips, Rasheed Wallace, Ben.
Who was number 1? Who was number 2?
But that was what made that team. As a Laker fan, that's what made that team unique and special. is they played as a unit, as one team. So they didn't need a 1-2 punch. They actually, on any given night, one of them was going to impact the game, whether it was on the defensive end or whether it was scoring wise.
I like to argue with Anthony a lot, and it's my brother, for those of you who don't know, about this Toronto Raptors Kawhi Leonard, and say that no, Pascal Siakam was a stud and they got it done. It doesn't matter who got hurt, they were going to win. But realistically, his number 2 was Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson getting hurt, right?
Yeah,
that played a factor. Absolutely, that played a factor. But when we talk about top 2, are we talking about from a statistical standpoint, or are we talking about from an actual full impact on the whole entire season? Because
give me the number 2 for that team though that people are going to remember.
Yeah, on that Raptors team, that's I agree with what you're saying in general, Omar. Like I think the way to build a championship team is having a dominant 1-2 punch. But I think that Raptors team is the one team where it's like
that's why there's the
really
one. I 100% agree. You need 2 people. Zico mentioned that before. Maybe we were live already, but
so that's what I'm saying. If you start bringing it, when we talk about Karl Malone, right? If he would have beat the Bulls, got 2 championships, he would enter the top 12 conversation, no doubt about it.
And then Doc would be in the argument conversation.
Yeah, it would be an argument conversation.
And it's the same exact thing that you guys saw with the Lakers. Shaq gets in the top 10. Kobe's right in that argument at number 11.
Yeah, Kobe was in the argument at number 11 at that time, but Kobe broke the number 11 when he won the title without Shaq.
Yes. But now we're talking about a player who if they would have had 2 championships would get into that argument. To me, is Charles Barkley.
Yeah, Barkley, Malone, we agreed with that.
I think
Barkley's one of those guys. One of the things I like to reference is we had 2 seasons without Jordan when these guys were all in their prime, and Hakeem pulled out on top at that point. Hakeem went out, he won those titles while Jordan was gone. Had Malone beaten Hakeem in those 2 seasons, he probably would have gotten those titles. If Barkley beaten Hakeem in those 2 seasons, he probably would have won the title.
And propelled them to the top 10. I completely agree with what you said.
Yeah. So
the counter argument that actually kind of goes to me sometimes, I think about, and like this isn't a knock against Hakeem, but it like just food for thought. It kind of blows my mind that Hakeem never once matched up with Jordan in a finals. It actually blows my mind so much because he had a couple seasons where he was insanely statistically dominant. He actually had solid teams, especially when Jamal Sampson was playing with him. They were the most dominant big man force in the league at that time, especially defensively. It blows my mind that he actually never matched up with Jordan in the finals.
But now you're going into this whole argument about the West always being more difficult than the East. And that's always been an argument that we could probably say for another episode.
Yeah, I'm just referencing that I think Malone and Barkley's just timing just sucked. It sucked for both.
Absolutely. But then if we're talking about that, because we keep using beating Jordan as a barometer, right? So you just now mentioned Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, and Hakeem, and as far as their matchup with Jordan. Well, the thing is and by no means am I saying I'm advocating for this player at all, but Isaiah Thomas, who at one point was considered one of the best in the NBA, not getting past Magic and Jordan. Had he won 2 championships, where would you, does he crack that?
He won 2 championships.
He won.
Was it 2 that he won? I thought I could be wrong. It was 2.
No, they won back to back because of Dennis Rodman.
Because that's because they, again, but when Jordan came to the scene, that Detroit Pistons team not get past the Bulls.
That was.
And you know what? I stand corrected. Had he beat Michael Jordan, that's kind of where I was basing my argument.
Who beat Michael Jordan?
Well, no, we're talking about when Michael Jordan went on his first three-peat in that era where Jordan was dominating the NBA.
Yep.
Had the Pistons beat the Bulls and won an NBA championship, where does Isaiah fall? I'm not advocating. I'm just throwing out.
Yeah, I agree with you. Then he's gonna possibly throw himself into a top 12. I think he might pass up Oscar Robertson at that point if he beat him. But at that, the problem was at that point, the Pistons team had started getting a little older.
Yeah,
Like
they
that was
were-
the issue.
had
It wasn't like that you have to look at the era. I don't think Isaiah falls into the 90s eras at all. Isaiah, Bird, and Magic fell into that 80s era. Like they were the three teams dominating their era. So I think you're looking at different eras.
Isaiah retired in '94.
Right. But
So that was during Jordan's first. That's during Jordan's first three-peat. Right.
Right. But what
and
I'm
he prevented
saying
him from starting that earlier by winning
Yeah,
those
Jordan
first
already
88,
started
89.
yeah, so like Isaiah at that point had already started to decline, and honestly, little guards usually start to decline a little quicker than the bigger players. So I'm not surprised at that point he was kind of done. That last year that he won the title, his team was they were really good, man. I don't think people realize how good that Detroit Pistons team was. There's a reason why they were beating the Lakers in the finals. So
Well, just to point it out is in his last 3 years, he still averaged, the lowest being 15-7, right? Versus, for a career average of 19. You get what I'm saying? So we're not that far off here.
right, but
that 90
team
that
as
90
well,
91
Lamar, that's what
season-
I'm saying. The team had got aged at that point, and like the team wasn't able to continue winning.
I understand that, and that's why I just do that the hypothetical, since we were using Jordan as somewhat of a barometer to some of these other players.
I
Had
was
Isaiah.
yeah. Well, I had actually used Jordan in the era argument when I was just referring to that. If you look at that era, that 90s era, you're gonna have Malone, you're gonna have Barkley, you're gonna have David Robinson, you're gonna have Jordan there. You're gonna have Hakeem. Like that was that group of guys who should be winning titles. Like there's an era of guys that should be winning titles. Like if you look at the 2000s, it's Kobe, it's Duncan, LeBron to an extent because his career started. It's KG, it's Dirk. Like those were the guys, and of course Shaq. I'm sorry, it was all around Shaq at that point. So if you look at that era, like that's kind of what you kind of need to. That's your competition. That's the era that you're competing against, and were you able to beat these guys or not? And Hakeem only beat Jordan when Jordan wasn't playing.
Well, technically did not beat Jordan, right? He
Right.
still does not.
His team,
He technically did not beat Jordan, but
in terms of
but-
titles, earning the title at the end.
yeah, but we kind of, so speaking of titles, we kind of went off of, we had this list where we talked about the potential to crack the top 10, right? And one player that we kind of skimmed past that
we haven't announced the actual guys. If we talked about the argument, by the way, I was going to do that. The people we have in the argument.
we did. You talked about Steph, KG,
okay. I'm sorry.
Giannis, Jerry West, Dirk, and KD. And if and then we kind of went over to the other guys and we talked about them if they had 2 championships. But somebody that we know with 2 championships, and statistically we know what he's done in the league, is KD. Does KD have a chance to crack the top 10 when it's all said and done?
Mike and I feel particular about this. Mike,
You're saying KD and Kevin Durant, not KG, right?
Yes, Kevin Durant.
Okay, I'll start here. I don't think Kevin Durant's ever getting in the top 10 unless he goes out and wins a finals outside of Golden State. I think.
So if he brings Phoenix a championship,
if he brings Phoenix a championship and he goes, then we can start having that conversation.
That's the argument. That's why he falls in the argument.
And that's why he's in the argument. But for all intents and purposes from his career so far, in my opinion, he's not a leader of a team. He's not the guy who's going to get you there to get it done. He is, and people are going to take this the wrong way, but he's a second fiddle guy. He's there he's a stud. I mean, the guy is an offensive phenom, right? I mean, he does everything offensively that you could ever want. When he was in Golden State, he picked up his defensive play and started impacting both sides of the court. He still impacts both sides of the court, but he needs a guy to tell him where to be. And if you realistically look at this Phoenix team, I think Devin Booker's doing that more than Durant's doing that. So even if they won in Phoenix, it's still going to be, in my mind, a debatable topic. It's not he's for sure in the top 10 now.
So for me,
but then if we talk about statistically, right? if we talk about statistically, what he, again, 13-time NBA All-Star, six-time first team, 4-time scoring leader. Like those stats, when we talk about overall career, and then if he gets, because everybody puts a big asterisk around his 2 championships in Golden State.
As they should.
But then again, if we're gonna go there, then there are some asterisks around LeBron James championships in Miami.
How
What
so?
I'm saying? I mean,
before we go on to that, because I think that's going to be a conversation for the top 10, which we will go back to the top 10, which I think there is an argument there. And also that it also ties into the conspiracy theory episode, which is going to be really good. It's going to be really good. I can't wait for the conspiracy theory episode. Honestly, I think it's going to blow people's mind. I've already done so much research for that. You guys have no idea.
It's gonna blow my mind.
My wife thinks she already knew I was crazy. She thinks I'm like psychotic at this point. It's bad. But
Zico's crazy. Zico got enough time to talk to do research on episodes like four episodes down. Mike and I are just trying to make
I don't have the time. I just don't sleep. I will be up at like 6 a.m., like up till 6 a.m., like just like looking at this stuff. And then she wakes up like
Zico's up at 6 a.m. doing I need to figure this shit out. I need to figure this shit out.
Really quick, touching back to KD, Mike, you talked about KD being the kind of person that he needs someone to tell him where to be in those moments, so that he knows to be in a position to win. I actually agree with that, but I don't necessarily think that had to be a player that needed to tell him how to do that. In the old days, it was a coach. Yeah, we look at some of the great coaches, not just old days. We still have one today, Greg Popovich. Greg Popovich is honestly, I know Phil Jackson was a Laker and helping us win titles, and he helped the Bulls win titles. Those are 2 of my favorite teams I've ever watched. But if KD actually had a coach, he had Steve Kerr, and as great as Steph Curry was, I feel like Steve Kerr was putting KD in a position of becoming better, challenging him defensively, as well as Draymond and things like that.
That was the Mark Jackson system,
right?
Not Steve Kerr. Because that's going to be a whole nother conversation.
Agree. But like, look, Phil Jackson's triangle offense it's a basic triangle offense. It's the most, they don't even run it anymore. It's too basic for the NBA today. The offense that they're running now is way more sophisticated than the triangle offense. And plus, teams have learned defensively how to crack the triangle offense because there's no longer players that could effectively run the triangle offense to today's era. There probably is a couple, but you'd have to put them on the same team to make it work.
I mean, if Philly had the right pieces to go along Joel Embiid,
that's one of the teams. That's one of the teams I was going to refer to. Okay, but
look, Mike.
If KD,
Mike hates, I'm telling you, Mike hates anything that reminds him of Kobe.
Well, regardless of Kobe, Kobe was in the same boat. LeBron was in the same boat, whether people want to accept it or not. When he went to Miami and Spoelstra, which Spoelstra is one of my favorite coaches in the NBA, he's like right below Pop right now in terms of he's not putting up with BS. He's going to challenge you. He's going to put you in the right spot to win. He did that to LeBron.
I think Eric Spoelstra came up under Popovich, so I think he takes a lot from.
I don't know if he did or not. Honestly, I don't think he did. I believe he came under Pat Riley, which is also a great era.
Which is a similar.
Right, but
we could do an episode on coaches, but I don't think people would watch that.
I would love that episode. Honestly, I think that would be a great episode.
No, you're right. It was Pat Riley, but that's similar.
Yeah.
Popovich
so
exactly,
old school, similar mindset. And so like my whole thing is I feel like KD was in this era where social media is blowing up. Coaches are being fired year in, year out. It's just there's no consistency to it. And I feel like if KD would have had a coach who was going to put him into a situation to be really successful, I think he could have been the number 1 on a team and win. I think the fact that he was never in a situation like, because of today's age and how soft players are, I know everyone hates that word soft. He was in that, like he was mentally soft at a point. I think he's gotten a lot better about it, but he was mentally soft. Social media affected him. It bothered him. He was on it nonstop. He had a burner account on Twitter, like things
he's
like
probably
that.
Going to comment on this and say, nice, mean things to us because he's listening to everything. Because he's
right. I'm not saying anything mean about him. I actually feel like if he had that, he'd already be in this top 12.
You just said he was.
We would welcome.
That was
we
would
welcome KD
to us at that
tweeting
point.
us and putting us on Instagram because we'll take the recognition. of
Yeah,
being
if-
tweeted
if
by
KD
KG.
Hey, if KD likes and subscribes like the rest of you, he'll be in my top 10.
You're an easy sell, Mike.
I genuinely like KD a lot. He's one of the funnest players, most fun players in the NBA to watch. I'd be happy for him if he were to win a ring, so he could kind of break that mold outside of the Golden State situation that he had, winning titles. But I think that Mike is spot on with everything he said. I think that's what's holding him back from becoming a top 12 player all time. So he could still change it. The argument's there. And by the way, he has improved a lot. His defensive focus now versus before is night and day. I love watching.
And he's still scoring at a very high clip.
And
So offensively, he's still KD that we know, but he's improved his defense, like you said.
And then I know we listed some other guys, and I don't think we listed this guy, but who do you think, because I know who I think is the current active player that realistically will break into the top 10?
Jokic.
Okay, I completely agree.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
But I don't disagree, but I'm gonna throw a little curveball here. Until Steph hangs him up, Steph right now has the edge on Jokic.
So
Right now, I agree, but I don't think Steph has enough left. I don't think he has a team left. I don't think he's winning anything else unless he goes the route that all of these other old superstars did that never worked out, by the way, the Steve Nashes, the Karl Malones, to go chase a ring. I don't think Steph's going to add.
But Steph is still that lethal threat could be a catch and shoot guy on a championship contender team. So you can't take that away. Some of these other guys we talked about couldn't be one-dimensional players. Yes, he might be a liability on the defensive end, but you can't take away the fact that Steph could probably extend his career by being just a catch and shoot guy on a contender team.
But all these guys in the top 12, they're not getting rings at the end of their career being a bench guy. If Carmelo Anthony got a ring with the Lakers, we're not all of a sudden saying, "Oh, he's a top."
Yeah, but again, Steph is what, a 4-time champ.
I agree.
Right, that he got during his his prime. So if he goes and adds two more and is a 6-time NBA champ per se.
Okay, but where's he going to get?
That's kind of, Omar. That's the difficult thing about the situation right now. That's the argument that you're talking about. Right now, the way it's looking, Steph's window is closing, and that's what Mike was talking about. So the capability of him doing it, like this is that Isaiah Thomas argument we just had. His team's window is starting to close. So if the Warriors go on rebuild and somehow Steph is still the number one guy and he's doing all these things and wins the title, then that's a different argument. He could still be in there. Our worry with Steph is the team, like Draymond Green is a little older than the rest of that group. Clay went through an Achilles injury. He has not looked the same. The team
they're falling apart right before our eyes.
I don't think they're necessarily falling apart. There's still a team that when playoffs come, that's not the team you want to face if they're healthy. Like they're capable. It just
but they're not the same threat of the prior years where you do not want to see him in 7 games here.
And Omar, that goes to what you're saying. If Zico calls this and they're dark horse and they come out and they win a championship this season, then you got Steph Curry in the top 10, and I'm wrong about Joker being the one in there. If he brings this team as constructed and leads them and becomes finals MVP and wins a championship this season, I think that debate just gets kicked. And
so the thing is, so if that happens in that scenario, Steph is automatically top 10 in your book?
No, not automatically, but he's automatically an argument. Right now, I wouldn't.
I think he's the top 12 at that point. I think he passes Oscar Robertson.
Right now, I wouldn't argue for him to be in anyone's top 10 as it is right now. I wouldn't argue for that. But if he
if he did, we're talking about hypothetical scenario. If he did what you just said, took this team today as whatever seed they fall in the playoffs, and ends up leading this team to an NBA championship
getting Finals MVP, I could argue
getting Finals MVP. Does he crack the top 10 automatically?
He might be right there, Omar. I'm thinking about
I
I'd
would-
have him somewhere between 9 and 11 at that point.
I would automatically argue for it or could see other people's arguments for it. Would I necessarily change or displace somebody? Maybe not, but I could definitely be convinced to do it.
So here's my argument against it based off of criteria that we talked about. And this criteria, by the way, like we've had our own top 10 list that we've had before. This criteria makes me affect my list as well, just so you guys know. One of the things that we talk about is affecting both sides of the ball. The Warriors used to hide Steph on the defensive end. They'd hide him any way they possibly could. And so my whole thing is Steph might be in this, like if we actually just said who are the top 5 offensive players, you might put Steph in that. But if you looked at this list and say, does Steph beat any of them out defensively? And I don't
so again, I know we're putting nuances and caveats to how we're going to determine our top 10. But at the end of the day, when he is now considered an argument for the best point guard to ever play the game, and he's not in the top 10, is outrageous.
I don't have that argument. I think Magic Johnson's the best point guard, and I don't think it's close. But
I'm saying, but that is right now the discussion that's happening is who's the number 1 point guard of all time? Is it Magic or is it Steph? I'm not getting into that debate right now. But if he is the number 1 point guard of all time and he's not in the top 10, something's fucking wrong.
Okay.
Yeah. If you put him in front of Magic on the point guard list,
like Omar, is he really ahead of Magic? And you have to think about this like
to me, I'm gonna say something wild. To me, I don't consider Steph a point guard.
Exactly. That was my argument.
So
too.
let's just I'm not even gonna get into that discussion. To me, Steph is not a point guard. He plays the point guard position.
He doesn't really play the point guard position most of the time. He's the guy running down and
no. When I say point guard position on the damn starting lineup, to me, the offense was initiated through Draymond Green. Draymond was the point
or Andre Iguodala.
I think basketball now in the current situation is very
positionless.
It's a positionless game. It's completely different. I don't think you have traditional spots until you drop a player, put it on paper, have to list it. With that said, I don't think that, and Zico, this goes back to your defensive side. He tries to play. He was never a lazy guy.
You guys know he was 2016 steals leader, right? I know steals is a little inflated stat because you could be in the passing lane on the help side and all that. But still, it takes defensive instincts. It takes reaction. It takes being in the right place at the right time.
He chased his guy around. He always tried to stick to his assignment. He was smaller. He was outsized than a lot of the guys he went up against, and I'm not going to discredit him for that. The difference between him and Harden wasn't there. Harden didn't try. Harden takes plays off.
You're right.
So
and to defend that statement, outside of Kyrie, we're talking about, because now I want to talk about NBA championship level, right? We're not talking about first round playoffs or regular season stats. Outside of Kyrie, you tell me which point guard or guard torched Steph Curry.
Well, Chris Paul at times, but it was never in a playoff scenario. It was during.
That's why I said put that aside. I put nuances and I added nuances and I put caveats on there. Outside, when games really matter, which we're talking about NBA championship series, outside of Kyrie, who torched Steph?
Yeah, in championships,
So defensively, like you said, he's not that 100% liability that people paint it.
He didn't guard them. Clay guarded Kyrie. Clay was guarding Kyrie. They threw him on the off person. That's how they match.
And what
he doesn't guard Jamal Murray.
But then what do they try to do? Like every they would try to come and set that pick and roll to get that switch to get that player onto Steph. That's what happened in that series. You're right. Clay was Golden State. Great. Clay and Andre Iguodala and Sean Livingston were their 3 defensive guards that usually matched up with those matchups. So we're not going to get into, because we're talking about a whole different topic. But yes, you're right. Steph was not the primary defender on those guys. But if we go back and watch it, you could see how they set screens to try to get that switch onto Steph because he
Right, but
was
that
considered
also
the
comes
defensive
with, like
lineman.
team defense, and when you have a team defense that can adjust appropriately and show help and funnel a certain way,
And
like
that's a great job, coach.
And yes, and that's why I don't discredit Steph, because Steph still tried. He still showed up. He
right,
wasn't
agree.
as good as a defender as them. He wasn't a 6'9" point guard who could defend positions 1 through 5 in a.
yeah, and who could get 10 rebounds a game because he's
Yeah,
6'1".
he's not that guy.
Yeah,
But
I'm not
I'm
putting
not
that
gonna
against him. I just feel like that's like all I said is like, look, again, Steph's amazing. He's in this argument. We put him in this argument. I put him in this argument for a reason. Our whole aspect of if these guys are going to crack the top 10, what is holding them back? Well, I think that's one of the things that holds Steph back.
That would be the counter argument. Yeah. Okay. I can
What
see
about
that too.
what
But-
what about Giannis?
No, I don't. We're skipping too quick from Jokic. I think he is, if he continues on this career arc, right, and he continues to dominate the way he is, and he adds another 2-3. I mean, he's still relatively young. He adds 2 or 3 more championships, a couple more MVPs. This is a guy that realistically, out of the whole scope of the current active NBA, if he keeps this up, this whole nonchalant but still putting up numbers and dominating, I could see him going into a top 5.
But none of us are disagreeing about it here, Mike.
Well,
So
that's why I took it up to top 5.
I did want to mention. I actually agree with Mike. I think the whole top
you
5.
always agree with Mike. I'm gonna record
Thank
the
you.
episode that you agree with me because every time I say something, you always like.
I agree with Mike. As in, I want to touch Jokic a little bit more.
Whoa, pause.
On Jokic.
Pause.
There we go. Definitely got to cut that. I want to touch on Jokic a little bit more. The top 5 situation. How many rings does he have to win to be considered top 5?
If you ask me, I'm gonna say 5. He has to have 5 at least.
5. 5's the magic number.
Okay, so if Jokic gets 5, I don't think he. I think in this area it's too.
But he needs. I would say he needs 5 with at least 3 Finals MVPs.
Agree.
To crack top 5.
I mean, he's such an unselfish player. I don't want to say he needs that many. There's a reason why. He's the kind of guy I could see him getting 15 assists in one season when he gets older, and just letting Jamal Murray go for 40 points a game. And
It doesn't matter.
But
If he
then-
has 10,
but then
20,
he's
and
still
15,
he
he's getting
he
a,
can still be a triple double.
Yeah.
If he averages a triple double with 15 assists a game,
yeah.
and they end up winning the NBA Finals, Jamal Murray can average 40. That's
Right,
still a
but-
triple double.
Listen,
Yes,
I'm
and
gonna
finals
reference this. I'm gonna reference this to Tim Duncan in particular. Tim Duncan was the best player on the Spurs, but there was a season where Kawhi won the Finals MVP, where Tony Parker won MVP. Honestly, there's a season where Ginobili probably should have won the Finals MVP. I don't hold those.
Hold on, but hold on. Tim Duncan, 5 NBA championships and 3 Finals MVPs.
Right.
Well, and to go back
You hear what I just said.
back to those other 2, though,
You skipped over what I just said. Hold on a second. I just said there was a season that Ginobili should have won that Finals MVP, and I don't hold that against Tim Duncan. I wouldn't hold that against.
You
Jokic.
can file that in your conspiracy theories. They just wanted to spread it out because they didn't want Duncan to overshadow your boy Kobe.
When
Just like, and don't take
the
this
year with
wrong.
Ginobili? The year
Wait.
with Ginobili that I'm talking about.
Wait a second. No, I'm talking about any season when Kawhi and Tony Parker won. But the
Well,
other
see,
thing, since we
well,
brought it
Kawhi-
up,
Kawhi-
we brought it up.
Hold on.
wanted the Tim Duncan should have. I
Kawhi's
would love
Finals
to hear that.
MVP. Kawhi's Finals MVP.
Was it
A
the
lot-
last season? Yeah, he deserved it.
But a lot. Well, first of all, a lot of it had to do with what he did on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, no, and
Right.
he deserved it. That was towards the end of Duncan's career. But
And then because when you compare it to Andre Iguodala's final MVP, then
Undeserved.
Kawhi is there's a big gap between final MVPs when it comes
Andre
to those two.
Iguodala should have never been Finals MVP.
We agree. But
Right.
when you have that as a barometer, then Kawhi's MVP is non-debatable.
And that's all fine. And another thing, which I don't know, you guys will probably take this the wrong way, or you might appreciate it. The season that Kobe Bryant got regular season MVP, he shouldn't have. But there are other seasons that he should have got.
Yeah,
You
that
mean
was
every
a
season
makeup
that
season.
Steve,
No, not every
season
season.
Steve Nash won it?
Mike,
Probably
I'm
some of
gonna
those.
reference this. There was seasons Kobe should have won it, and I'm gonna give you an example. Some people say he should have, and this kind of blows my mind. Russell Westbrook has an MVP season where he
Crazy.
was 7th place team. Okay. And his reason why is I think he almost averaged a triple double, or he had the most triple doubles.
He did average a triple double that
Okay,
year.
he averaged a triple double. He literally Steven Adams talked about it. The guy forced him to not get the rebounds to let Russell Westbrook get it so he could do this. Like they talked about this. Okay, this is stat padding. Kobe Bryant had a season where he averaged 35 points a game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. The only other player in NBA history to do that, a guard to do that, is Michael Jordan. No one else has ever come close to that. In an era where teams average like 87 points a game. So he averaged 35 points a game. They didn't even consider him. He was like 8th on the list. There's an aspect where media does this where it's biased. It's BS, honestly. So I agree with you. He shouldn't have won it that year, but that was the makeup for, oh crap, we did kind of screw him over multiple times. We got to give him one.
Yes, I think it was the Lifetime Achievement Award because they had to make it up to him. They had to.
Right.
But let's get back on topic. We all agree Joker's there. He's probably, again, if he continues, I think we could argue top 5 for him. But you want to talk about Giannis. Go ahead, Omar. What about Giannis?
Well, we're just talking. We're focusing on some of the players, right? Because honestly, if you ask me, I don't want to talk about players that careers are over, that we know that their numbers and their stats and their accolades are never going to change. We got to start talking about more about these players that are currently in the NBA, currently producing, currently superstars and stars, not like your Brook Lopez,
No. Wait. There are no stars in the top 10. They are all.
Well, I started with superstars. You heard what I said first.
Leave it at superstars.
But that was just a jab.
I do want to say though, like I do want to talk about some of those guys that careers are over, because 2 guys on that list are 2 guys I think are insanely underappreciated that we haven't talked about, and that's KG and Dirk. And like I don't think you can not talk about them at least a little.
We mentioned Dirk to start here. I thought we
didn't talk about him, but we did mention that Dirk was one of them.
Right.
That is there because arguably he's one of the top, I would say, and this is to be conservative, top 5 power forwards of all time.
I think he's there. I think you got.
I think you could argue. Yeah.
I think it depends on who you list as a power forward, who you list as a center, because there's a lot of guys who are kind of,
because you're going to go with the Tim Duncans, right? Obviously.
Well, Tim is a power forward.
Hakeem's the other one that I have to talk about. Like he started as a power forward. Sounds like Tim Duncan started as a power forward and finished his career as a center. Like he's one of those. Like it's hard.
But then in your top in your top 12 right now, you don't have any more power forwards.
Right. I think Dirk is a top 5. I agree with you.
Yeah, I realistically he probably is, because you got
because the other person you're talking about
is
the other person you're talking about is KG.
Yeah.
KG to me is, I have KG, honestly, I have him above Malone and Barkley. I do. I know Malone might have.
To me, KG is one of the first ever to be able to guard all 5 positions. Take Magic aside, but we're talking about
guard all 5 positions. He could.
He tried, and people are going to argue. And I wanted to catch myself before, I say people go crazy, because in a lot of Laker fans, I'm a Laker fan, by the way. A lot of Laker fans' head is Magic guarded the 1 through 5, right? He was able to guard, but he not like KG. KG's ability to pick you up 94 feet, and in the era of a more athletic basketball era.
Right. I have to touch on something on Magic, because we just kind of blast Curry for this. I blasted Curry for this. Magic had the same thing happen to him. They would literally hide Magic on the defense. Yes, he was capable of guarding all 5 positions, but that's because they would put him on one of the weaker players to guard. They had every other. Michael Cooper would go guard the best player. James Worthy would go guard the other best player. Kareem would guard the better big man. They would put Magic on the matchup that was easiest for him, so that he can get the rebound easier and outlet and run and push the offense faster. If you go back and watch some of the classic games, I never saw there were possessions where, he matched up against Bird. Yeah, he matched up against Jordan. I never watched Magic go for a game and decide I'm going to go stop this player. I watched a ton of those games because
so then KG arguably is the first player to ever be able to guard all 5 positions successfully.
No, Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman.
Well, yeah, but he's not in our top 10 conversation right now either.
No, he's never going to be. Dennis Rodman's my favorite player. He's not gonna be in the top 10,
Correct.
but that guy could guard anybody you put on a basketball court, and he proved it. He guarded Magic Johnson. He guarded Michael Jordan. He guarded.
You're right.
Hey, actually, you know what? This is the craziest stat that you could talk about right now. Oh, Mike, you have your phone open or computer open?
Continue.
Look up.
Yeah.
We all know Dennis Rodman is the greatest defensive player of all time, right?
Yeah.
Look up how many steals per game he averaged and how many blocks per game he averaged for his career.
Right next to none.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those most mind-boggling things that you could ever imagine. But I think he averaged less than a block, less than a steal for his career. I don't think I think once or twice he went over each of those stats.
Yeah.
He is the epitome of positional defense, positional awareness, team defense.
He averaged for his career, he averaged 0.7 steals and 0.6 blocks.
Yeah, because no one wanted to be around him.
Right. He denied players from getting the ball. He would limit possessions. That's how old school basketball was played, and he's still considered the best defensive player of all time. Who guarded?
Well, but that's because there's a lot of weight put on rebounding as part of being a defensive player.
Correct.
And because
that ends a possession.
Well, yes, correct. But when we talk about, like Zico mentioned, what he did from playing deny, frustrating the opponent, you know what I'm saying, making sure guys didn't get a touch. He played proactive defense, not reactive defense. And that's some things you don't see in the stat line.
No.
I think there's only one player that I could think of that actually, two players, I will say, three players that proactively played defense like the entire game in that manner, didn't take plays off, but had statistical aspects that look way better than Dennis Rodman. So there's only three guys I could think of. I will mention four. I'm sorry, I missed one. Michael Jordan's one of them. His steals and block shots per game for a guard is insane. Tim Duncan's another one of them. Bill Russell is one of them, and Hakeem is one of them, but Hakeem only did it for 2 seasons. Hakeem had 2 seasons which were just insane, especially shot blocking. It was unreal.
Well, I mean, he is the all-time block leader, so it's not just 2 seasons.
I'm sorry?
Hakeem's the all-time blocks leader, so it wasn't just 2 seasons.
I know, but if you look at 2 seasons in particular that he had, Mike, they were
his 89-90 season where he averaged 4.6 blocks.
Yeah,
and then his 92-93 he averaged 4.2 blocks.
That's insane. Like he had 2 seasons that were just above.
But when your career average is 3.1 blocks, the 4.2 doesn't become, that insane. When you for a career you average 3.1.
Agree. But yeah, those are the guys I see that did it the whole game, which I think is underappreciated.
But then bringing it back to the topic, I agree. KG and Dirk are both arguably up there, but I think that argument goes away because there's a lot more active people that are going to push them out.
Yeah, but at the same time, like my whole thing, the one guy on this list that actually there's 3 guys on this list. I don't on that top 12 list that are like I feel like there's an argument where you could root them out. And it's because they played in an era where there's only 8 teams. I know everybody loves Wilt. I know everybody loves Bill Russell. They're 2 of the greatest big men to ever play. But Oscar Robertson as well. Like to me, I know he changed the game in a lot of manners. I feel like that's the argument where maybe somebody can talk about KG possibly passing him because Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, KG, Dirk Nowitzki played in the best defensive era of basketball that we've ever seen. KG was on one of the best defensive teams we've ever seen. Tim Duncan also as well. But the fact that they were able to win titles in that era, dominate their era statistically with championships and everything that they did, go to that many finals, I feel like KG could have an argument to possibly crack that top 12 if you root Oscar Robertson out. So that's why I wanted to mention KG. I don't think Dirk does. I don't think he has the defensive accolades to even be considered in that. But offensively, in that season he had where he won the title, was so good that you have to mention him.
Okay.
you don't see any argument that KG.
No. That I said those are two guys you could definitely argue to get in there. I don't know if, yeah, you have arguments there. Does it move them out? In my opinion, obviously not yet, and their careers are over, so it's not going to. But I could see somebody having that opinion and putting them in 100%.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we start, and this is why I'm going to go back to somebody that I kept mentioning, is we talk about defensive accolades, 5-time defensive NBA defensive team selection is Giannis. You know what I'm saying? You can't discredit that. If we're talking about, yes, we play in a different era. We play in a more offensive, focus basketball. But then again, 5-time NBA defensive team. NBA champ, Finals MVP, 2-time MVP. Yes, I'm not saying he should be talked about in the top 12, but depending on how his career finishes and how many rings he wins, does he crack that top 12?
My asterisk with Giannis, I will mention this. The one thing I love Giannis and Jokic, they're two of my favorite bigs, and Embiid. The thing that I like about those three in particular, I know Embiid isn't on this list, but the thing I like is he doesn't have a title. But the thing I like about those guys in particular is they play hard and they don't take days off. They don't take games off unless they're legitimately injured. They're going to play every single game. They're going to play defense every single game. They want to win. It's prideful for them. Maybe some of it is them being foreigners, that they have a pride aspect for that. I know Jokic says he doesn't care, but he wants to win. He wants to do well. He does. He wouldn't be where he's at if he didn't. But the aspect that kind of throws me off with Giannis and where I worry about where his career will end, I don't think Giannis has the skill level that Jokic or Embiid have at all. And I worry that because he plays with so much athleticism and so much tenacity, that as he ages and those knees start to go a little bit and he can't play with all the athleticism and tenacity, that he won't be as successful, which kind of makes me feel like Mike says, I feel like Jokic might end up dominating this whole era and Giannis will kind of fall off as he gets older.
But that's very possible. But then again, remember, Giannis is still 29.
Agree, but that's
almost
30. Once you hit 30, Omar.
I get that. But then at the end of the day, is we're talking about, because right now everybody that we're talking about outside that top 12, we're adding so many hypotheticals and so many things that need to happen for them to crack it, crack the top 10. But if Giannis ends up winning another championship or two before his knees give out and his skill set, becomes apparent, his missing skill set becomes apparent, where do you put him?
And that is, in my opinion, where the problem is I don't think he has the team to win another one. Yes, they got Lillard. I don't think Lillard's cut for that in this way at this point in his career. I don't think they're deep enough to get past any of these other teams, the younger Bostons, the Denver Nuggets, if they're healthy. So I agree. Hypotheticals, if he goes and tacks on 2 more, we did it with everyone else, then yeah, he's in there. But realistically, I think his chances of that are slim. I think that, like Zico mentioned, he is a much more athletic style player, and those typically break down quicker, especially after 30. He's 29. Jokic is only a year younger, but Jokic can play the same style of basketball till he's 40 easily.
You're right. You're right. But again, you're talking about also a player that takes care of his body.
Yeah,
you got to take that into account. He is a person that takes his body conditioning, his body, taking care of his body seriously. He's not ignoring that aspect of it.
There's only been one so far. There's only been one that's had that longevity at that, and then that's LeBron. He's different. I mean, all of these.
We're not going to get into the whole HGH thing and all that other stuff.
We will, but for the other episode, for the
yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm throwing that out there.
That's ludicrous.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not from the
Well, hold on a
South.
second. Actually, hold on a second, Mike. Actually, since we're talking about legacies with these 2 episodes, if it comes out that LeBron did, or any of these players did take HGH or steroids of any kind, what does that do to this list? And I don't care who it is. Like, it could be freaking Kareem comes out and he's like, yeah, like I took whatever it was, Shaq, whatever it was, whoever it was.
I
What
think a
does
lot
that
of
do to
people
this
get,
list?
I think a lot of people get a lot of passes for a lot of things these days.
No,
Oh,
no,
so you're trying to
I'm playing
to
devil's
justify.
advocate. I'm playing devil's advocate, Mike. Like, seriously, like I'm not picking on any one person.
No,
Like,
I know. I
like-
think realistically, if it came out that he did something that was banned or illegal or something, and they somehow didn't catch it, or it was somehow, I mean, let's pretend that it's rigged in LeBron's favor and he did this stuff. Then how did it ever come out if it was really rigged? But two, if it isn't and it does come out that it was, people will forget about it and move on. He
Oh,
won.
hold on.
Let's look at it. No, I think you're looking at it differently than the way I was asking. Let's say it comes out that the NBA knew LeBron had done this, because part of our conspiracy theory, there's an aspect of Michael Jordan where something serious happened. Then we will talk about the conspiracy theory that something serious happened and the NBA knew, and they kept it under wraps because
They'll stay under wraps forever in the public's eye.
But now
And
it's
that's
Michael
and
Jordan's
that's
situation
and
isn't
that's
out
the
there.
whole thing. And that's the whole thing about LeBron and how this NBA is catering to LeBron, because that's the only player that we know has a clean rap sheet.
Well, that's not true. I mean, all of a sudden, Steph Curry doesn't have ankle problems. I mean, all these guys go through things and get better and come back quick.
No, but
No,
that's
not what we're talking about.
Yeah, like Mike,
So-
seriously, we're gonna use LeBron as the example. Like, again, I don't hate on LeBron. LeBron is my top 3 player, one of my top 3 players all time. Like, I'm not hating in any way on him. Like,
Listen,
he's
if
still amazing.
LeBron,
But
if it comes out that he's doing,
that it
let's say he
happened.
took steroids. Let's say
And he gets,
steroids
hold on, he
all
gets
career.
tried for it. Let's just say he gets tried for whatever the hell
Sure,
happened.
convicted.
No, you don't even need to be tried. If it just comes out that he's used steroids and LeBron has to admit it.
Right. And
there's
10 years
facts.
will be forgotten about and they'll move on. Just like
No,
if
that's
he
not what I'm
raped somebody.
talking about though. Where will LeBron
Like he
fall?
did what? Hold on.
Nothing.
No, hold on. Did you bring in Denver?
Just let's just what I'm saying is it will be forgotten. It won't affect his legacy whatsoever in the long
Why
run.
not?
See, this is where I think
his
you're
career
wrong.
longevity, that played a factor in his career longevity,
It won't
which
matter.
we all, we all put a big, what I'm having a brain fart on the word, but we
Mike,
emphasize his longevity.
matter.
But if he
I
comes
feel
back
like,
and
hold on, no, Mike,
if he's
I'm
using
gonna go back to this because I feel like you're missing the point of what I was talking about. LeBron is being talked about as potentially being the greatest player of all time, next to Michael Jordan. If this comes out, okay, and it said that LeBron did do something like this, whatever it might be, does that whole conversation of him possibly being greatest all time go out the window?
Nope.
Or is it forgotten about the way you're saying?
It won't affect it at all.
This is why I think you're
long
wrong.
term.
This is why I think you're wrong. Social media today will destroy him. As fast as they built him up, as fast, this same thing happened to Kobe. The second what happened in Colorado happened, they did everything they could to destroy him. They will do that. If you think they won't do that to LeBron, I think you got another thing coming, man.
You're absolutely right, but that's why I said long term. Short term, yeah, he'll get destroyed. They'll kill him. They'll pick on him. They say it won't be, but 10
And
years
they'll drop
down
him
the
from
line,
that list. He'll drop like 5 or 6 because he cheated the game.
and 10 years down the line, they'll say differently.
I don't think so. I think if something like that comes in for any player, if it came out for Shaq, I think he'd be blasted so much. I think people would remove him from the top 10 in their conversations.
So if it came out that Kobe used steroids this whole time, you would say, "Oh,
Same thing. Same
no,
thing.
you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't."
Yes. I would still say Kobe Bryant is my favorite player, but I would say, oh my God, this removes Kobe Bryant from my top 5 conversation. 100% I would.
I don't think you would.
100%. Mike, I'm telling you, if someone comes out and this is true, this literally happened, that they were taking steroids, they were doing things that were illegal, that they were not supposed to do while being an NBA player, they're getting knocked down my list 100%. For any player on this list, I'm telling you they are. I don't care who it is.
Okay.
I'm telling you they are. I can understand that these players are spending all kinds of money. Like you hear LeBron spends about $1 million in the offseason on his body to make sure he's right. I would do the same thing. I would do whatever I could to make sure that I'm healthy and ready for it. But I'm not going to go do steroids. I'm not going to go do HGH. I think that's a completely different conversation. So that's me personally, which like, if you remember, like I'm a health food crazy fanatic, you know that about me. So anybody doing something to the extreme like that, out the window, like you're done in my book. Like you're not going to be considered.
I think a lot of people share Zico's position on that, Mike. One thing you can't, we're not going to bring in other sports, but just take the Barry Bonds, Jose Cansecos of the world. Look what happened to their legacies and their careers once that got exposed.
For a moment, though. For a moment. Now everybody just says, oh, it's the steroid era. And they move on.
Yeah, but do they still talk about those guys as top players the way they did before it came out that they
if I'm not mistaken, because I'm not a big baseball fan, but didn't they take away Barry Bonds' what do you call it, all-time home run record thing, and they put an asterisk around it, and they made a big deal about it?
People want to. I don't think in the actual record book.
Pretty sure they did take something away from him. One of his awards, Mike. Yeah, pretty sure they did take one of his awards.
But it doesn't change it.
The other guy.
Reggie Bush still a Heisman? Is Reggie Bush still a Heisman winner?
They took it away from him.
I know, but I'm asking you.
Well, in my eyes, yes, because now with the NAIL,
that's the whole conversation.
All that shit is
right. But Omar,
we're never gonna have an era of steroids, bro. That sounds ridiculous.
Steroids isn't going to help basketball players anyway. So let's just jump back on topic.
Really?
Whoa, really, Mike?
I actually don't agree with that, Mike. I think it absolutely will.
That is
Omar, let's break this down, Omar.
It's not help in the same way that you're thinking of. It's not. Listen, if he would, there's so many things that steroids does to your body that would already be noticeable if LeBron James was using it for this long. But we're getting
a lot of those things were noticeable. A lot of those things were noticeable when he was in Miami and was talked about.
Were be noticeable.
He had the same doctor as Evander Holyfield, dude. Like, come on. They had the same exact doctor. This was talked about. Omar, I think this guy just doesn't want to consider the possibility that this could have happened.
I'm telling you, even if it did happen, it doesn't matter. But we're guys. This is another episode.
Yeah,
we got to get back to these active players.
Okay, you're right. Okay. We'll go over this. I can't wait for the conspiracy episode. It's gonna be so good. I already have so many things. Like I'm deciding what to pick or what not to pick because it might go like 6 hour long. But let's go back to, we've already done everybody in terms of the arguments. Now we've gone over Steph, KG, Giannis, Jokic, Jerry West, Dirk, and Durant. Let's start talking about people who are part of that asterisk. People who, like we mentioned, Malone and Barkley, had they won a title, they would have been in there. There's a lot of guys that are still current players and also former players that
we don't need to touch on any more former players.
I'm just gonna list some names as notable recognition as former players. We mentioned Malone, we mentioned Barkley. Luka is one of them. He's a current player. John Havlicek, Moses Malone, Isaiah Thomas, Allen Iverson, Dr. J, Dwayne Wade, David Robinson, Kawhi Leonard, Elgin Baylor, Russell Westbrook, Kyrie Irving, Scottie Pippen, John Stockton, and Kevin McHale. Those are in no particular order. They're just guys that we listed, that we looked up, that were on lists of top 30 all time. So we're mentioning them.
I think the only people on there, the active players that might have a chance, if Kawhi all of a sudden starts playing basketball like he was, starts winning, gets a couple more rings, maybe another finals MVP, regular season MVP, we could start talking about it. I think you have who was the other? Luka. Luka's still really young. I think Luka.
Once you start, I would put Luka if we were going there, I would actually take Dirk or KG and Jerry West out of that potential list, and I would put Luka in there because statistically, and if he ends up winning NBA championships, Luka could arguably be in the all-time top 10.
I agree. But he has not won a title yet, and that's why I'm going to hold off.
I'm with you on that, but again, because we're talking about guys who could potentially, he's young in his career. Yes, he's 28, 29, but again, he's a guy that I would put. He's a guy similar to Jokic, where he plays with zero athleticism, and he has the skill set and the footwork to be able to score at different levels the game at the three
Hey,
different
no,
levels.
yeah, you caught me off guard. Luca's only 24, man.
No, he's not.
Yeah, Luca's 24 years old.
24
Is
years
he?
old. Yep.
Yeah, he's still young. That's what I'm saying. He's still got a career left where he can.
I'm mixing ages with somebody else. I was looking at somebody else's age.
Yeah, I think you got careers to follow over the next 4 or 5 years. If you want to talk about this, if they continue it, you got guys like Luca and Jason Tatum who are still in that younger end. I don't.
I would put Anthony Edwards in that conversation.
He's young. But they got a lot of stuff to do. Anthony Edwards, do you think he's gonna, in the current league, the way it's constructed with the players that are active and in it, do you think he's gonna be an MVP type player who's going to go take teams to the finals and win finals MVP?
I actually
if he continues at the pace he is this season and continues to be a guy that plays both ends of the floor and scoring at the rate he's scoring, yes, in today's NBA, yes, he could be a potential MVP.
I think he could be on the level of a Jason Tatum in terms of effect on a team. I think he could be the number one player on a team. I think the difference with him and Jason Tatum is I think they need a legitimate team around them to win. I think they need a little more help to be able to win the title. And I think that more focuses on the fact that Jokic is in the league, Giannis is in the league, and Embiid is in the league. They're guys who are so good that you're going to need that kind of team to be able to pass them. So I think that's kind of like affecting them right now. But I absolutely think Edwards is going to
go on record for everyone here. I don't think Jason Tatum is currently anywhere near this conversation. I think same with Luca. I don't think these guys are in it yet. I think if they continue getting better and progressing and winning a few accolades or championships and all of that, then we can get there. I don't think these guys are there
yet. I think the reason why you have to mention Luca is Luca's already on pace to pass LeBron James in almost every statistical category LeBron is noted for. So that's what you have to talk about it. So if Luca, and this is like the hard part, about this. And if Luca goes out and he passes LeBron James, and let's just say he goes out and he wins 5 titles, the same as LeBron James. If he wins 5 titles and passes LeBron in all those stats, are we talking about Luca as being one of the greatest players of all time? Is he they're going to be in that conversation with LeBron and with Jordan and with Kobe as the greatest player of all time?
I still think it all depends. It all comes down to championships. Statistically, he'll just be another Moses Malone and another Barkley and another Karl Malone. He has to win, in my opinion, at least 2 championships.
You got to do a lot of winning to get in that list. But yes, like you said, if you're hypothetical and he passes LeBron and everything and he wins 5 rings and he gets some MVPs, some finals MVPs, then yeah, you are. And you got to remember.
But Mike, this is where I was headed. This is where I was headed with this. And this is what sucks.
Luka didn't do HGH, so.
Right. Okay. But my whole thing about this era,
Mike is hilarious.
My whole thing about this era is we're looking at some of the worst defense any of us will ever see ever. And so part of this aspect of statistics today, and I kind of want to possibly even like end the show with this. Today's NBA is set up for players to put stats together like this, to break records because of the way teams are playing defense. I've said over and over again, my favorite era is the 2000s. I think the fact you will see this on my list. Let me finish this. You'll see this on my list. I think that Kobe and Tim Duncan are so undervalued for what they did in an era that was the best defensive era we've ever witnessed in basketball. They dominated. They had 5 titles each in that era. KG won 1, Dirk won 1, Dwayne Wade and Shaq won 1. But it was the best defensive era. It was so hard to score, to put up these stats. I don't care who it is. If you put Luka in that era, Luka is not doing these things. LeBron didn't do these things that he's doing now in that era. He did it as that era aged. Mike, he did it as that era aged. Again, I've told you this, there's another, hold on a second. If you look at LeBron James, Kobe Bryant's, and Michael Jordan's 10-year stats, their peak stats of 10 years, they're almost identical. All 3 of them are identical, although Michael Jordan is a little higher than all of them in almost every stat category, aside from assists. LeBron does beat Kobe and Jordan in assists, but they're right behind it. So that's that 10-year gap. But LeBron had a time period where it was easier for him to score, which helped him raise those stats. He did. You can go up and look at this. In fact, I'm going to have this for my top 10, just so you know. Okay.
Can't wait.
Okay. With that being said,
Like and subscribe.
and we got one more. Mike, you still where's our sponsorship shout out? Mike,
Who's our sponsorship shout out for this week?
Zico?
Well, we're still working on a few more sponsorships. Obviously, we've talked about Massimo's Pizza. Obviously, we've mentioned Friar Tucks.
Stoic.
We're Stoic. We'll just leave it at that in terms of sponsors. I'm going to do something special for the sponsors later on, so we'll leave it at that for them right now.
Got you.
Omar, I'm hoping you're dialing somebody up right now. I want to see how many push-ups you're doing tonight.
You guys ready?
What are we going to ask them?
I got it.
Who's the top 10 all time?
No.
that-
Yeah, you got to ask them that.
Yo, I got a question for you.
Who are we talking to?
We're talking to AJ.
All right, speakerphone.
AJ, can you hear him?
He's
Nope.
got to talk.
Yep, AJ, question for you. If it comes out that LeBron is on HGH, does he fall out the top 10 of all time?
Immediately. He's not even there. He's not even there right now.
See? See, this is the type of people we're dealing with.
Hey,
Oh, man.
You see how you see how my man M.A. Idoka disrespected him.
Yeah, I love that, by the way. That was awesome. I love the old school coaches that do stuff like that.
Well, AJ, that was a wild take on your part. I'm gonna call you back.
It started
No.
off interesting, but then it kind of trailed off. I don't know if you would list them. I'm not going to list LeBron outside the top 10 personally, but
Well, if
There's a
if,
lot
he-
of
if it comes out that he's on HGH, yes.
oh yeah, of course. But he said he doesn't even have him there right now, which
Which I'm you know what? I'm gonna tell AJ, you better have subscribed and you need to comment with your top 10 of all time list right now since you don't got LeBron in it.
We need to screen these phone calls too before we.
No, the whole point is
I'm kidding.
it's we're gonna pick a random topic question we talked about and see what people come with. Outrageous comments.
I agree. AJ,
we
thank
missed
you
out.
for
We
answering
missed
the
out on
phone.
Dino's phone call from last week that kind of started this whole
yeah.
closing out the
Hey.
episode.
Omar's biceps, thank you for answering the phone.
Hey, really quick, speaking on Ime Udoka, I thought that video was hilarious. It made me think of one of my favorite coaches to watch growing up, Jerry Sloan. Have you ever seen a coach ready to go fight with players on the sideline? He was hilarious to me. I remember him ready to fight everyone. I remember him ready to square up with Shaq.
Zico, both you and I have played in other countries. We've seen coaches try to fight players.
Yeah, but in the NBA, it's a little different. Like they try to be a little more classy.
I would say Popovich has thread the needle.
Yeah, he does. He'll argue with players.
Yeah,
But
but see,
Jerry
I'm gonna
Sloan
leave
was
it
ready
at
to
this.
swing, bro. Like that was
Yeah.
completely different.
Ime Udoka, that just shows you that guys, because he played in the LeBron era. It's just show you that guys don't have the same respect for LeBron that they do of his other peers in the top 10. Nobody's fucking talking to Kobe like that, to Jordan like that, to Hakeem like that, to Duncan like that. Nobody's talking to them.
And so obviously we'll leave this for the top 10 conversation. I think part of this has to do with social media. I think kind of LeBron's kind of puts his foot in his mouth sometimes. I think if LeBron would just not talk about it, he wouldn't have some of these issues. The fact that he goes out and says that made me the greatest of all time. It's things that he does and says, I think it just gets under people's skin, and especially the old school guys, like that bothers them, you know. So
Right.
what'd you say, Mike?
No news is bad news. It's
Right, exactly. Like I feel like
It's clicks, it's
Right.
tabloids.
It's part of what today is.
Yeah.
And he's
So-
again, LeBron does a hell of a job to stay relevant in every aspect.
I mean, this episode right here made us the greatest podcast on YouTube. So
Oh, wow. That'd be a good thing to add to the intro of our show. From now on, Mike, every time I do the intro right after, you have to mention the greatest podcast on the internet.
I got too many jobs now.
Then stop saying absurd, outlandish shit, Mike.
We both have another job we got to do, Mike. We got to make sure that Omar doesn't curse. This is YouTube. We don't want to be banned from anything. I'm
You're not
also
allowed to curse on YouTube?
Wait, what?
I don't want to curse on YouTube because I
Oh
want
yeah, my kids can't watch any of these episodes yet.
Oh well, then Zico next time warn me because
I told
it's
you
not.
before, man. Also,
No.
the episodes will be going up to Apple Apple playlist podcast. Sorry. I've already started it. They're up and running. We have the channel going. I will send a link and share a link for that as well. I know there's people that don't want to look at our faces while they listen. I think it's probably easier for them. So
That's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
You know
So,
what?
you guys got
Zico,
anything else you want to add? Okay, go ahead, Omar.
yeah, I was gonna say next November, Zico, you gotta grow a beard out for No Shave November.
I've done that before. You've seen me. I've gone.
No, but you gotta grow the beard like me and Mike.
I've done it before. I went 2 months without shaving, and
Hey,
my
you
beard
gotta
was
shave your head. Forget the beard.
that
Shave
I'm
your-
not doing. I'm not shaving my head. I'm
Hey,
not.
we should make something where we can bet where Zico shaves his head. It'll grow back fast.
I think we should do some challenges. I already had a plan for a challenge for the league. I'm planning on doing an ice bath, and anybody who does an ice bath and shares it and get some people to follow us. I don't know how exactly I'm going to do it, but they're going to win a brand new Molten basketball since that's what our league plays with. But I think we should do some stuff like that for the show. Maybe we do some giveaways.
You know what? You should put it up there on the Instagram. Let people put up the first challenge for Zico since Mike said we need to create a challenge for Zico.
I'm not shaving my head. It's not happening.
Then don't lose the challenge.
I mean, I'm not like that's the challenge I'm not taking. So you guys got to give me something else to do.
Hey, how about this? If we get to 10,000 subscribers, you shave your head.
I need more than that.
Bro, we're barely at
by the end of next year.
That's
All right, you know what? I'll do that. I'll tell you what. If we get to 10,000 subscribers, I will shave my head.
There you go.
all right.
I'll shave it live so you guys can see it. We'll do it in one of the episodes. So
Now we got a goal. So everybody just like and subscribe real quick.
We need to get to 10,000 followers ASAP now.
we've got 87 so far. So
Hey, that's double last.
by
week.
by the time we get to 10,000, I'll be balding and I won't care anymore.
That's double last week.
Hey, that's so discouraging, dude. You can't be, instead of saying, we're gonna get there soon, you're like, oh, we're gonna be balding, Zico. At the rate you're going, that's gonna be like 20 years from now.
You need
So
I'm being sarcastic, Omar.
Get your mind right.
I know.
I don't know how my wife will feel about me shaving my head, honestly.
Hey, your hair's short enough. It'll grow back. That's like 3 months.
I mean, we
Zico,
hope, right? That's
Zico, when she goes back home to visit, then you can go ahead and shave it so she doesn't have to see you.
so I just got to time 10,000 followers with shaving my head.
No. We'll work with you. So when she goes to see family, that's when you can shave and pay up your debt. Don't worry about it.
All right. 10,000 followers, I shave my head.
Let's go.
All right.
I'll take on the challenge, guys.
All right, let's do it.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tonight. We went on rambling a little too much, I think, this time, but it was a good episode. So a lot of skits from it for sure.
All right. See you guys next week.
All right.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Bye.